Alright, hi, I'm Alpha Low.
You told me your name was Alpha Love.
I'm sorry, Alpha Love.
Who am I?
Who are you?
Who am I?
Who are you?
That's what I wonder.
Jain Master?
Manish.
To be. So, we're here to talk about gift cosmology, gift culture. What comes to mind when you think about gift?
So I can say my interest in the gift culture actually came out of out of looking at the whole culture of copyright and patenting that had come up, and when I started looking at alternative ideas of education and learning and things, and it felt like that framework was not allowing us to really share our gifts and our talents and our learnings and our skills and things in ways we needed to. And since I was a child, because of the spiritual tradition of Jainism, this whole idea of like ownership, like are we really owners of anything, is something that I always hold. And so when it became like in this knowledge field, this is the owner of this knowledge. And when I looked at my own thing, when we started publishing things, it's like, I'm not the owner of this. This has come out of like thousands of conversations and relationships and so many things. And so who am I to claim ownership over whatever's coming out of me? You know, it's not. So when we started publishing things in Shikshantar in India, then we really looked for something like more of a copyleft, where we would just say that we're contributing, like we've received so much, and this is another offering back into the world, which should be open and usable by anybody. And so from there, then kept meeting people and started to seeing this is much wider domain. And for me personally, the journey has been like every time I come across something related to cosmology, it helps me see something that already existed in my own culture. Like another thing in the Jain tradition, like forgiveness. And when we talk about gift economy, we really don't think about things like that. But for me, it's such a huge amount of how we stay in harmony with each other and with the world, you know. And by having practices, conscious practices of thinking of things like forgiveness, and we have a whole ritual. I think many cultures have fasting for several days, and in that going into a deep kind of meditation reflection. Where am I in disharmony with people or different people over the past year, and where do I need to, heal that and reconnect in a way so that there's harmony within me and around, and so those practices, as I keep going deeper and doing deeper, I'm like actually finding that, I grew up with this is a gift culture practice too, actually, and I never was paying attention so much to it. And maybe I was talking to Kumbha here, another friend who's in the Giftival, and we were just saying so many things we grew up with, which are in that, we just don't pay attention. And when they start disappearing, then all of a sudden where did it go? Where did that? We had that in our culture, and particularly in the last 20 years, in India and Africa, a lot of things are disappearing very rapidly, and people we grew up taking them for granted. And so now it's kind of remembering and regenerating to a lot of those things. And I find also when I love creating different tools and processes and practices and rituals, and so much inspiration come from and we don't need to just copy that, but there's huge amount of inspiration that I see of different things in in India, which can give birth to so many new kinds of in different contexts, and things. And so it's like the sharing the gift that I receive from my own culture into other cultures and other spaces also is very important for me.
Yeah, it's almost like a lot of us, or in the past, were living in this field of gift, but it was unnamed.
Yeah.
That's kind of when economics comes in with its naming, with its quantification, with its money, that it's kind of snatching away that. And then it's almost now we're kind of renaming it so that we can actually find our way back.
Yeah, and it's a delicate balance, right? Renaming versus rebranding. So branding it again becomes a little bit dangerous because you're really then setting it up to be easily commodified again, in a sense. So, but yeah, the naming and remembering and renaming is very important.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance because we kind of need to discern how to create it again, and also before it was just part of this natural flow, so it didn't have to be taken out of context almost and just said this is an object.
Yeah. And it's the renaming is also renaming again that there's something maybe more sacred in the world, unknown, sacred, magical, all of those things. So the renaming is also giving space for those things to again be seen or be felt.
And you grew up in India and in the US and in Australia where I grew up. Like there's also some similar things happening. Like I have an 80-year-old friend, and she says when she was young, and she's a 4-year-old, she would just walk around. Her parents would let her walk around the town, and she'd appear at different neighbors' doors, and that's this organic thing that you might call babysitting, but it's just organic, this free space. And now it's like in order to do it, you actually need to have some guide to create a space that people can roam freely, or you need to pay babysitters. It's kind of like it's being taken somehow. It's so subtle that people don't even realize it's being like snatched away.
We had a recent experience. So growing, maybe about my daughter's 14. So when she was like 2 or 3 years old, so about that. Like Indian train rides are fantastic. Like you're sitting in a compartment with other families, and food. Like when it's time to eat, like everybody brings. Most people carry food with them, and so everyone brought their food, and you just start be like a huge party, and people sharing food, and so when my daughter, that kind of, so I had seen that growing up, and about 10 years ago. It was done a little bit. There was still, but if you sat in the, more expensive parts of the train, people do a little bit less. And there's a little bit of fear. The fear had crept in. Like is somebody gonna, poison this or put me to sleep and take all my stuff or. But my daughter would go around like to everybody when she was 2, and she just like. Asked for food, and people were quite happy, and my wife would be she would be happy, and at the same time was a little bit embarrassed, feeling judged, and I guess in a record, like people are gonna say you don't feed your daughter, and she's coming and asking her, because she was like more, and then she'd come back, and then we'd like be sitting in front of it, and she'd come back and she'd start putting food in our mouths, so it looked like we had trained her to, but recently we were on the train, and we hadn't written it in a while, and so my daughter was there, and she still had memories of sharing the food like I also had, and so we met somebody, and we started talking, and they offered food, and it was like really again like beautiful thing that it was still alive, but we were both talking about it. They were surprised when they offered it that my daughter's like, yeah, I'll have some. She didn't have any fear or reservation, but they were quite surprised. Because now of that culture of fear, is that people usually say no thank you, no thank you. But she was quite open, and then we had them. Then she offered them some food, and they had a lot, but they still took it as a kind of in the spirit of solidarity and sharing. And it was so, but they were just surprised, like people accept the offer now because of that fear. So I think that's those things are so beautiful when you see that's still. And then the train conversations, or like the sharing of stories, like people sit, you sit for 4, 5, 6, there's long train rides, and just like you talk about everything, and it's like you're just like, at the end of it, there is that feeling. Like, let's trade numbers, let's because that deep so that I haven't, when you ride airplanes and things like, it's just not the same feeling usually. You put your headphones on and you just look at your video and things. So
yeah, it reminds me of my story about my friend Rita in London, which is like one of the capitalist money hubs of the of the world, and they're like everyone's in their own place, and she and a friend would take I think baskets of fruit and other stuff onto the train and just start giving it away, and they do this every week, and after a couple of weeks other people actually also brought stuff and started, and so like you're creating this little, it's interesting that sharing actually then started people talking, and and so hopefully it can be brought back into even like a very individualized, non-social places.
Yeah, and performance art, which is one of our favorite topics, is like a great way to do it. We tried out once, I'm thinking also, we do a lot of things, but once we did a kind of performance art of Free Money Day. So we went on the lake and we just started handing out money to people, and people were like, what? We're like, they say you can't grow money on trees, but we figured out how to do it. And we want to gift it to. And these were like to like middle class or upper middle class people. We're giving them like 20 rupees, which is not a lot, but we're just like, have something and take it and keep half for yourself and gift it the other half to whoever you feel like. And they were like, people are getting like offended, like, why are you giving it to us? We're not poor, and like, or they, all this kind of stuff. And we were just doing it to kind of, that we started in saying, like, why are we doing this? And then talking about how the money system has, what it's done to our family relationships or what it's doing to ourselves, and just to start to open up conversations with people and invite people to think, okay, how is money affecting our lives? And then asking them also, okay, do you remember any stories of like sharing and things from your childhood and things? And so just that act kind of provokes something, like a very strong response, but then beautiful conversations around, again, remembering and saying that we have many possibilities actually at our access, which we may not be even realizing.
Yeah, it's almost like hacking culture, hacking the operating system that humanity is. And like when someone gives you something, some money or something out of the blue, it's like, well, that wasn't my operating system, how the world works, and like it's like almost a shock, and that disruption, it may even appear as a miracle. It's like, because that's not supposed to happen. It doesn't conform to any rules, and like in some sense, like we're performing like within their eyes like little acts of miracle, and that can actually open up their heart and open up the world to new stuff to come in.
Yeah. There's a great story I have to tell you about that. Want to tell you now on the camera, or?
Yeah, let's tell it.
About the free money. We were doing it. This was a little mini Giftival in India, so I was showing this thing to a couple of friends there. So there were these three guys who were, auto rickshaw drivers, tuk-tuk drivers. So I went up to one of them and I said, today's Free Money Day. I want to gift you some. So he was like shocked, but took it, and he went off, I think, to have some chai with the money or something. The other guys was like, what's the big deal about that? Like, it's only like 20 rupees, like, what is that? I've been sitting here the whole day, I haven't made anything, I have to go home, and it's like, how much do you usually make it? It's like, at least I need, like, to cover my costs, like 200 rupees. So I just pulled out 200 rupees and handed it to him. So he's like,
rupees to dollars is how much?
oh, it's like, that would be like $3 and something, right? So, but that was like his.
That's a lot.
It's a lot for. So he was like, "What's going on here? This is weird." So he was just like, the third guy comes up to me. He's like, "No, you're wasting your time with these guys. There's an orphanage in town, and you should go there." I'm like, "Well, I can give you the money, and you can go and give it to them." They're like, no, I don't have time to do that. I don't have time. But he's like, there's an orphanage there. And he's like, anyways, this is you're doing this for, like, people do this all the time. What's the big deal? They come and they do it for their, for publicity. And I'm like, well, where's the publicity? Do you see any cameras here? Do you see any photos of me? I'm like, you don't even know my name, so what's the publicity you're talking about? We are thinking, he's like, no, but you should go to that orphanage. I'm like, why didn't you go there? And then, so we kept going back and forth, and then finally he's like, pulls out money, and he gives me money. And he's like, can you take it to the orphanage? I was like, well, I'm leaving tomorrow morning. And I'm like, so why don't you just take it yourself? No, and he gives it, he said, he insists that I take it. And he says, wherever you go, I'm sure you'll give it to children who need it. And I said, but why are you giving us? And he says, because I trust you. So I very humbly took the money and then went and paid it forward afterwards. How's that?
And I hear you sometimes talk about the gift cosmology.
Yeah, so I don't like, a lot of friends are talking about gift economy, and I think that's important, but it's too small of a framing. Because economy is one part, but I think the larger consciousness and the larger spirit of how we choose to relate to life is actually what has to shift in a deeper way. And the economy might be one tool for that, but there are many other tools and processes and relationships and things that are part of that. And so that's why I think it's important to talk about either gift culture or gift cosmology, because it's a whole set of different things, whether it's like something like I mentioned, forgiveness, or could be like traditions of hospitality, care, or different ways that we think about, like zero waste as a kind of thing, or nonviolent communication. All of these ways we are actually always relating to each other, that this becomes the possibility. These are not usually talked about in discussions around economy, but I think they're equally, if not more valuable, to actually bring this kind of or shift of our spirit and our awareness to the world. Because if that doesn't happen, then this disease of commodification, like I joke around that people in the highly industrialized countries, like they'll commodify their grandmother's cookies if you give them a chance, like so everything, nothing is sacred. Like, and in most parts of the world, there's like, okay, at least this wisdom was there. Like, okay, these are the things like for we can make some money off of. And these are the things, no, we don't want, this is in the realm of sacred. And it's so interesting, like we have in India, like particularly where I am in Rajasthan, it's super hot. So there's a lot of sacred traditions on water, right? Like in the desert heat, the water is like the most critical thing. So there's so much around that. And we met a guy who had a shop in the tourist area. And everyone was selling water bottles. Usually it's like 20 rupees for a bottle of water. And he was selling it for like 6 rupees. Same water. And so everyone's selling it for 20 minimum. Plus, if you go to a restaurant, it'll be like 50 or 100. Like, why are you selling it for 6? They just looked at us. Are you crazy? Like, are you guys really crazy? Who wants to make money off of water? Like, what kind of person are you? Are you human? You want to make money off of drinking water? This is like our sacred, most sacred thing we can do is provide water to somebody in this heat. And why would I want to make? There's other ways I find I can earn my livelihood that I don't have to do it off of this. So that sensibility, I think it's a sensibility which in the kind of dominant market system, we're losing that word sensibility,
Yeah, there's a kind of, so there's the gift economy inside the gift cosmology, but there's also this sensibility and like your attitudes and inviting the sacred in. And so ceremony and other things, like things that bring that, are part of this gift cosmology. And then because the wealth is stored in the community, because our relationships is actually how the gift happens, anything that creates community play or celebration, or anything that restores community, like healing or forgiveness ceremonies, these are part of the gift cosmology. And then the flow of goods from nature to us, and like if we're having a lot of pollution, then we have to do more work. So that flow itself is also a part of the economic flow. So the more we're in nature, the more we become indigenous and like part of the earth. It's also part of the gift.
There's a
cosmology.
beautiful Native American quotation we have in our center, which is, "What you people call your natural resources, we call our relatives." So I think that's part of the becoming indigenous that you're referring to, and that as we start to see that we are related, we're relatives. These are not just commodities for us to consume. These are our relatives. They're intelligent, they're alive, they're communicating. And if we open ourselves, then there's so many other gifts to be shared with these beings, And so I think that's the invitation of the gift cosmology. That we're not alone.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
And do you have a vision of how gift culture can come back into the world?
I think one is remembering, definitely, because there's a part of all of us, which is, I think that's what gives me hope, that is still in the gift. It hasn't been fully commodified. Even in the most, you could say, even in like Wall Street investment bankers from Goldman Sachs, there's still a part of them which is deeply connected to the gift. So the more they can feel that and remember that, that's one way. And I think, but the idea of the Giftival was really to start to, I see that there's a fragmentation amongst lots of the people who are exploring gift in different dimensions. And so this idea that we first start to, again, connect to each other and not only understand, but really deeply down to our most being feel that the gift, and that energy that gets the field can get expanded for the gift, And so the idea is that really people who know from their hearts what gift culture is, that we connect more with each other, and each person is bringing a dimension. Like every time I come to the Giftival, it's like I see new dimensions of what this grand, mosaic is the gift. So I think that is really important, that connecting it more to itself, because then it starts, like, I don't know what's beyond exponential is too small of a word, but like something. It's
it builds on itself
explodes,
to grow like this kind of this creative field that then allows even more creativity to happen.
Fractals, right? Yeah.